What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. Okay, let's do a little Middlekauff mailbag. At John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs. I'm not going to make a habit of this, and this might be the first and last email I ever read. But right before I was going to record, I looked at my emails and I saw this, and it was just so passionate. It's essentially, a Middlekauff mailbag question. Some of you guys that don't have social, I respect it. So, Pete Peterson. At first, I thought it was Patrick Peterson. I was like, damn, he's about to crush the Cardinals, but it's not. It's Pete. John, love the pod. Rarely miss an episode. I too live here in Scottsdale. Let me be direct. Why is the media and public so accepting of the dumpster fire called the Arizona Cardinals? Here are the facts. They are the all-time worst winning percentage in the National Football League. Even more glaring is the fact, even though they are a founding member of the league, they have won a grand total of 7 playoff games in the entire history of the franchise, second only to the Texans that have 6, who came into the league in 2002. 7 freaking wins in a century. Not great. That's less than 1 playoff win a decade, and all controlled by 3 generations of the Bidwells. They just were ranked by NFLPA as the worst franchise in the league. Bidwell has lawsuits against him from numerous former employees for hostile work environments and litigation against him from multiple states. Is he really any better than Dan Snyder, who the media rightfully went after? This is arguably the worst professional sports media franchise or professional sports franchise in history, but rarely does the media dive into this tragic situation. Well, I think this is interesting, and this is where I do think we all can be a little biased. If this was happening to, it happened to Washington, right? And it was a really big deal. Why? They're a massive market with a lot of history. Where I grew up, if this was taking place with the 49ers, people would be fucking livid. It would be a problem. I mean, look at the Giants, who have had probably one of the worst, definitely their worst 10-year run of my life, and it's really, really ugly. And they get crucified. I've only lived here now for what, 3+ years. But because of my location, like, growing up in life, I follow, I would say, the Arizona teams relatively closely as a Pac-10 fan, the colleges. Obviously, the Diamondbacks play in the Giants division with the Dodgers. The Suns have been, West Coast NBA team, so I've followed them. I, I think a lot of people here, let's just use this just market in general. One, not a lot of people that do what I do, talk about sports for a living, live in this area. Two, the fan base is much smaller than a lot of the places that would get crucified. Like, this wouldn't be tolerated with the Packers or the Steelers or the Niners or the Giants or the Eagles. I mean, even the Cowboys, right? They get crushed. They make the playoffs a lot. Hell, they sometimes they win a playoff game. They just never make it to the third round. So I think it has to do with the location of so many people that live in this area are transplants, and I think the fan base relative to a lot of NFL teams is much smaller. Uh, and I just don't think they're that important to the landscape of the league. Like the Bears, who last year had an awful season, and it was a problem, and it was a huge story. I think the Cardinals, in a weird way, are kind of viewed like pre-Ballmer Clippers. It's like whatever. And like you said, one thing Bidwell, I think he benefits a lot from being in this market. Out of sight, out of mind. I uh, I have some people in my life that own a very, very lucrative business, family business. And over the course of the last 20 years, a lot of people in those industries have been forced to sell that business, have been kind of strong armed. Now, it's not like they got screwed. They got paid a lot of money, but they were forced to sell. And these were major markets in America, right? Where this lucrative business is in an area where if I polled every single human listening to this podcast right now and said, "Would you move there?" all of your answers would be immediate no. You'd be like, you wouldn't even care how much I was offering you. You would just say no. And they've always said that they've really benefited from the location of where their business is. People don't want to mess with it. So they just kind of get left alone. And in areas like Los Angeles, in areas like San Francisco or Dallas, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, you don't really get to hide. And here you kind of get to hide. I mean, one of the things that I like about moving here is there's still an element of the wild, wild west. It's like there aren't as many rules, aren't as many regulations, just fucking whatever. And I miss that. I mean, that's the California my dad grew up on or in, which is long gone now. There's an element of that here. But I think, this area, while it's fast growing, I do think it's really out of sight, out of mind. It really is. And I would say the same thing a little bit. The Raiders benefit from that, in Oakland and now Vegas, but they still get much more crucified because historically they have been a much more successful franchise and they have way more fans. So it's somewhat is a numbers game. And I think part of the reason is like I'd go out of business if I talked about the Cardinals every day. Not enough people care. Honestly, I don't care that much. So I think like why don't I talk about it? Because I don't even find it that interesting. I really don't. Because part of it is Bidwell, unlike Snyder, it feels like flies a little more under the radar. But like you said, he's getting sued constantly. He's always has issues. That they're the Mike Brown gets shit on constantly for being really cheap. I think no one would argue the cheapest guy in league history is this family, and might not even be close. Might not even be close. So yeah, I mean, I here's the thing: when you say the Arizona Cardinals, it's funny. When I moved here, some people don't quite understand what I do. They're like, "Are you going to cover the Arizona teams?" I'm like, "No, I don't. I couldn't even pretend to care. They do nothing for me emotionally, which kind of sucks. I mean, hell, like I'm not a big baseball fan like I used to be, but I still like background television. If when I lived in the Bay Area, now again, I like the Giants, but even when they suck, you just throw them on in the background if you're doing other stuff, especially like day games during the season. If I have the Diamondbacks game on for like 5 minutes, I just see it on my TV and like I gotta change it. It's just, ugh, something about it. The Suns do nothing to me. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what to tell you beside. I just think it's the team. No, simply put, no one gives a shit. Where a lot more people cared about Washington. So I feel for you as a Cardinal fan. Uh, Being under the Bidwell's watch sucks. I was thinking this for the bag. I was thinking for the Patriots, they would draft Travis Hunter, but now that the Giants have signed Russell Wilson and Jameis, they probably won't draft Sanders anymore and could now take Hunter off the board. What do you think the Patriots will do in the draft? Is the Arizona wide receiver McMillan worth the fourth overall pick? I would say this: it sucks for the Patriots if Carter, assuming he's healthy, is off the board and Travis Hunter's off the board. If the Giants pass on Shador Sanders, uh, that sucks because it's clear there are two guys that are just way better. And then there's the next group. McMillan, I could not take at four overall. I wouldn't take him in the top 10, but that's just me. I mean, there are some people that like him more than others. I mean, you watch the right game against New Mexico, he had 700 yards. But I just there's one guy that's been drafted in the top 10 with his speed, low four fives, that has gone on to be a high end player, and that's Mike Evans. And I don't quite see Mike Evans, a good player, but to me, like if I'm drafting a wide receiver at four overall, he's got to be Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, Julio Jones, and I don't know if this guy's that. Might be, but to me, he's more like a guy you take in the teens. Um, I don't know what they do. I think they would be in a tough spot. I think then you just take like who do you feel is the best player? Is that Mason Graham? Is that one of the offensive linemen? I just think you end up taking one of those guys. I don't know the answer to that, but I could not take McMillan over the lineman. I would still take either defensive or offensive lineman right there. Uh, Obviously the discussion with Will Campbell and the arms, like I'm sorry, it is a big issue. Now, let's just say hypothetically Will Campbell, because the pushback is, well, he's played years at the SEC, and that's true. But if it does become an issue, I do think he could slide to guard immediately and be an awesome player. But how often, let's just say he became a Pro Bowl guard, do you want to take that at 4 overall? And who knows? Maybe he just is a tackle for a long time and is a solid player. But, the Missouri guy worked out really good. People are really high on him. This is the trouble with the draft. This is why people have been saying 2 months ago that's like, like the Niners and the Cowboys at 11 or 12, they're going to get like the same pick of a player as the teams like assuming Hunter and Abdul Carter are gone, as like the Patriots and the Jags at 4 and 5, which is not normal. Usually, like the top 6 or 7 guys in a good draft are pretty, like, you feel pretty confident, like these guys are going to be badasses. And then it's more of a coin flip once you get past like 10. Not saying there aren't sweet players, but you never know. And that's, I think, in this draft, it's not quite viewed like that. Like a team drafting 17th may get a way better player than the team drafting 7th. I saw Ryan Clark saying on ESPN the Niners should trade McCaffrey before the draft. I don't agree. What are your thoughts? Uh, no. I mean, what's one, his value? Like they're trying to trade Ayuk. It's like, guys, no one's offering you anything of value for a guy making a bunch of money with a torn knee. So his value to trade him, he's more valuable to you. McCaffrey right now, I think you just keep your fingers crossed that he bounces back and he's still got some good football in him and he can stay healthy for a couple more years. But who in their right mind today would trade anything of value for Christian McCaffrey making $19 million dollars in a draft loaded with starting running backs? The answer is nobody. So it's like he is more valuable to the Niners today than he is to another team. Plus, like the Niners do have to play games next year. They can't just like, well, why not just trade Kittle and Fred Warner too? Hey Trent, well, the Chiefs are calling. You want to go play for the Chiefs? Like, fuck, why do you even dress out a football team? I saw that. I didn't spend much time. He wasn't alone. I saw other people say, like, why don't they just get rid of McCaffrey? Like, guys, what are you talking about? Yeah, if someone offered you get the 12th pick, can you trade him to the Cowboys to the 12th pick? Okay, I'll do that. Could you get like two twos? Yeah, think long and hard about it. No one's offering you any of this. It's like, yeah, hey, so and so team offered you a conditional fifth. It's like, yeah, I'll just keep McCaffrey. I got to pay somebody. Question for the pod. Although not strictly a football one, reflecting on your comments about mental toughness, I asked myself, what are the 3 mentally toughest sports events at the highest level? In other words, events where everyone is super skilled and the differentiator is the ability to hold it together mentally. My answers: the Ryder Cup speaks for itself. I like that one. The World Snooker Championship. Absolutely compelling. Every May, strongly recommend. I have no clue what that is. Test match cricket, where you have to stay on top 6 hours a day for 5 days in 100-degree heat. Yeah, that'd be hard. Yeah, I would say anything like some sort of Iron Man, Iditarod, stuff like that, where you get to a point where, I mean, all those guys train at a really high level, but the high end guy is mentally, like, his body's breaking down. It's not a sport, but I would say accomplishing like Hell Week in the Navy SEALs, things like that. I mean, those type things relative to, like, I don't even know. Pro sports, basketball, baseball, and football, like, you have to have a lot of mental toughness, but like at any moment you can tap out. Like that's what this gets back to football. And like you hear stories from guys in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, hell, even in the 2000s. Yeah, we have 3.5 weeks of double days in the pros. It's like, do you know how hard that is? Full pads, tackling to the ground for weeks on end. There's no tapping out. So I would say that, the Ryder Cup mentally for sure, physically not that taxing, especially the time of year they play. It's usually not that hot wherever they are. I would definitely choose some sort of triathlon, the Iditarod, some sort of climbing event, the some sailing championship. Probably not easy. Anything like that, where like you could legitimately die. Anything where it's not like, yeah, I'd get hurt, right? Or no, I could die. Like if this goes wrong, tell my family I love them, and I should probably call my accountant to get my affairs in order. That's a real conversation you have before an event. Then, yeah, I take it pretty seriously. Huge Charger fan. I'm an even bigger Herbert fan. But lately, I can't skate the feeling that he might never be able to get over the hump. He reminds me a lot of Rivers. Always talented, always putting up big numbers, but never quite able to finish the job. I know Herbert's ceiling is higher than Rivers, and Harbaugh arrival gives me hope. But considering the hype after his rookie year, and now underwhelming the season since we have been underwhelming this seasons since we have been. Sometimes, sorry, it's like I'm like, am I reading this wrong or grammar's not perfect always? I listen. I'm by no means some road scholar here. I'm starting to seriously wonder: will he ever take the next step? I think people forget, and I'm not comparing Justin Herbert to Peyton Manning, but most people are not Tom Brady, and most people are not Patrick Mahomes, where they win immediately. Like comparing Philip Rivers to Justin Herbert, Philip Rivers, I don't even think he did take him a couple years to start, right? Because he got drafted and Breeze was there. Justin Herbert is just turned 27 years old. So even if we are conservative, he has like, I don't know, 35. I mean, Matt Stafford still plays at a high level at 36, 37. Let's just be conservative, 35. He has 8 more years of playing really well. And what's Jim? 61 years old? I, I, I think you guys are going to be okay. I really do. And I get it. You know, the playoff game was bad. I mean, it's one of the worst games he's probably ever played. Uh, but I don't know. I think we're overreacting sometime. And I would say the same thing about Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. It's like they can never do it. Yeah, there'll be a year. I mean, Tom Brady once tore his ACL in a season and was just not around. So guess what? The AFC was open that year. I mean, Patrick Mahomes could just even just get hurt. Even if he doesn't get hurt, like there's a year he's not going to win the AFC every single year. One of these years, he's going to lose it. One year he did. Joe Burrow was in the Super Bowl. I promise you it's going to happen again. Why don't the Browns sign Deshaun to a massive contract extension and spread out the contract? Oh, my shirt's getting really bundled. This happens in baseball, but we rarely see the NFL. Giving Deshaun another $20 million guaranteed and stretching the contract over 8 to 10 years would basically be make his number irrelevant. Am I missing something? I think they're in a business situation where they don't want to do anything to elongate the relationship. So they're already in for the money they're in for. They want out. That is the goal right now, to get out. So their only goal is to end this conversation, right? So even giving him an extra $20 million just continues. One, in what world would you pay him another penny? I mean, he's one of the worst signing slash trades in the history of sports. It's been that bad. So you wouldn't give him any more money, and you don't want to stretch this out 8, 10 years. You want to eat it the next couple of years and move on. I hear what you're saying. I don't think you're crazy, but I just think if you were in their shoes, you want this divorce to happen as soon as humanly possible. And at this point in time, there is a little light at the end of the tunnel, though it's a couple years away. Uh, yeah, I would just play this bad boy out. When it comes to college basketball and March Mania, one thing is for sure: nothing's for sure. Upsets, buzzer beaters, Cinderellas, top seeds going home early. It's all gonna happen. Bet the unexpected. Every upset, every day with DraftKings Sportsbook. With live betting, exclusive content, promos, and parlays, DraftKings is the ultimate college basketball destination for March. Ready to make your first bet? Check out matchups and pick a team to win. It's that simple. First time, here's something special just for you. New DraftKings customers bet 5 to get 200 in bonus bets instantly. Bet the unexpected with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the code JOHN, that's John. That's code JOHN for new customers to get 200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Question for the pod. Getting married next year, so got a bachelor party that'll be late this year, early next year. Thoughts on Scottsdale, Vegas, or Nashville as the best place for a bachelor party? Love golf, gambling, and boozing. I would probably rank them either Scottsdale, Vegas, or Vegas, Scottsdale, and have Nashville last. The one thing you would have with Vegas and Scottsdale is the golf and gambling aspects pretty solid. Obviously, Vegas is the best. They got all the casinos. Scottsdale has added the DraftKings casinos. No free shout-outs, though. DraftKings is a sponsor, and I love that place. Right next to TPC, so you can play golf and then just go right there. Or you can play other places and go. And if you're going in the fall, there's going to be football games on the weekend. So I would put one of those two. Now, I'm not a club guy. I'm a bar guy. Like I've been to, you can count on how many clubs I've been, not counting strip, on two hands in my 40 years of existence. In my, 40, 22 years. I had a fake ID for a couple years of going pretty hard. Though I don't go hard anymore, but I'm just saying, like, I don't do clubs. So if you want clubs, uh, you could throw any of them in. The thing with Nashville, if you're going for a bachelor party, you're basically just staying on the strip. It's a little like Vegas. Now, there's in terms of partying, the strip on Vegas, I mean, you can entertain yourself for days. Uh, in Nashville, the Broadway strip is really just you're just drinking at bars, which is nothing wrong with that. Where I would say Scottsdale has your widest variety of unlimited golf courses. I would say unlimited bars. Like if you want clubs, they got clubs. If you want just fun bars, they got bars, and they got the sports gambling. Now they don't have a actually they do have a casino. What's it called? Talking Stick, which has cards and stuff. Hell, you could stay there. But unlimited Airbnbs. I would probably go, given the golf and boozing, Scottsdale, Vegas, Nashville, or Vegas, Scottsdale, Nashville. I would have Nashville probably last. Just depending and between Scottsdale and Vegas, depending on where you're coming from. Uh, I'm a sucker. Like I like living here. Wait, like there, I would choose here 10 out of 10 times over Vegas. But there's something about the sound. Like I like casinos. Some people don't. Like I don't know. I just like the sounds of them. And there's enough golf there to have a good time. But the weather's great, I think, in both places in the winter, so hard to beat. I haven't been to Vegas when's the last time I've been? Been a minute. Something about just walking into the Aria or the MGM, just hearing those sounds. I did it at the Super Bowl because they have was it Hard Rock or something like right there on the strip? Was it Canal Street or whatever the main strip is? Not Bourbon, but like the main street going through New Orleans, and you just go and you just hear those sounds. You're like, God, it just gets my juices flowing. Top five running backs in the NFL. I'm a Colts fan, so obviously I'm biased, but I never hear Jonathan Taylor mentioned as a top five back in the league. He's consistently great every year, but nobody seems to talk about him. Do you think Taylor is a top five back in the NFL right now? My list, in no order, is something like Saquon, McCaffrey, Henry, Taylor, Jacobs. I mean, after a season where Christian doesn't play, it'd be hard to have McCaffrey in the top five right now. Obviously, when he's healthy, he's an elite player, like a Hall of Fame player. He could not play last season, and then he came back and immediately tore his knee. So it's like I couldn't, with a straight face, put him in the top five right now. And that's the thing with like these lists for running backs, and this is the pushback on paying them, is things can change so much. Like think how differently we talk about Saquon now than we did 2 years ago. Like it can change really fast. Though he's always been an elite talent. I would say Derrick Henry is a staple. Saquon's the king of the castle right now. Jacobs is just an excellent all around player. I'd have no issue with Jonathan Taylor there. Uh, who would be another guy that would be in the mix of the good teams? Jahmyr Gibbs. I think you would have to swap CMC out for Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, how many touchdowns did Jahmyr Gibbs have last year? It'd be hard for me to leave him off the list. He's 23 years old. Might have a bright future. So last year, he started 4 games. Obviously, he plays a lot. Ran for 1,500 yards, 16 touchdowns, averaged 5.5 yards a carry, caught 52 balls and 4 touchdowns. So he had 20 touchdowns. Obviously, they only played the one playoff game and he had 2 touchdowns. I, I'd have to swap out McCaffrey for Gibbs. Obviously, if McCaffrey's healthy, he goes right back in. But last year was pretty scary. The Achilles don't work, both of them, and then the knee. Bizarre times. If Russell Wilson has another bad year, mediocre stats, and no playoffs, does this hurt his Hall of Fame chances? At least the first go round. His first Super Bowl win was thanks to the LOB, and the second one, he lost the game. When you hear the Patriot guys talk about that play, I don't want to say he lost the game. I know it was his throw. I think it was a better, like when you hear Patricia or any of the Patriot guys, like in some of the documentary style stuff, go over that situation, it really is less crazy than when it happened live. They just, I mean, the Patriots out scouted the Seattle. If they didn't scout that look, it's probably an easy touchdown. But they knew the play was coming. So Russell's a bizarre guy. I would have said, in like 2018, 19, he was. You would have said like, is he a future Hall of Famer? We would have laughed in your face. But like, of course he is. And now it feels like it's getting pretty ugly. And sometimes, when you're so great, like no one talked about Willie Mays on the Mets, right? No one talked about some people's careers at the end. They just talked about the great spot, like how good it was in the peak of his powers. Like if Steph Curry plays his last season for Charlotte when he's 42 years old, no one will ever utter that. But when you have like the last 6, 7 years of your career where you look nothing like you did in the peak of your powers, that's a lot of information. Like that's a lot. That's a huge sample size. That's a huge thing to ingrain in your memory. I think about this a lot. Like as a kid, I don't go to therapy. Maybe one day I will, but it's like there are just some memories you really hold on. Not that you don't remember some negative stuff, but a lot of times, like when you lose a parent or a grandparent or even a friend that maybe you had a roller coaster relationship with, you think and remember a lot of the good times. And when you're sitting there, sometimes maybe by yourself, maybe a cocktail and just kind of just lost in thought, it's the good stuff that comes to mind, and you almost forget about the negativity. I think a lot of times with an athlete or even a coach, like one blip on the radar, like even Belichick, the last couple of years, that's no one's going to remember that. Even if he flames out at North Carolina, what people remember? 20 years, 6 Super Bowls, 9 appearances. And I do wonder Russell Wilson now. It's like, would he be better off if this year doesn't go well just to quit? I don't know. I mean, obviously, from a financial standpoint, if you can keep making $10 million, I wouldn't blame him if he wants to keep making $10 million. All the way from Ireland, so excited, getting a game. I saw that we knew they were playing in Brazil. We know they play in London. I didn't. They're playing a game in Spain. Playing a game in Spain. Raj really likes this international market. Basically, Brock Purdy, he can't throw the ball in rain. He has a weak arm and can't elevate talent, so make him play out his contract. And if he needs a tag, make it still way less than the contract that he's wanting. Is this naive? With all the talent leaving, we need to commit to a full rebuild using the draft and build depth across both lines. It would also solve Ayuk issue as it would free up cap space. Thoughts? Yeah, I just think that they are. We can argue what the right tactic is. it does feel inevitable that they're going to sign him to a contract. So my days of pounding the table like this is crazy. It's like I was saying that last year. It's like, hey, just let it play out. Well, if they're not going to do that, which clearly that is not their intention, it's a waste of a breath, right? So you're just we're going to have to get the contract and then evaluate them on it. Like at the end of the day, we can nitpick all we want. Like, the Giants should never have given Daniel Jones. They shouldn't have kept franchising Saquon. They should have extended Saquon and franchised Daniel Jones or maybe let Daniel Jones. But they did what they did. Like they let Saquon walk and they pay Daniel Jones. So you just have to evaluate then off that situation. So we will, whenever they give him the contract, because if you tell me right now, it's like, hey, they signed him to a contract and they gave him $100 million guaranteed. I'd be like, oh my God, it's one of the great steals of all time. If you tell me they give him $200 million guaranteed, the conversation is different. So I think at this point, I am just at peace is the wrong. I don't care. Like you give Brock $100 million a year. Like it doesn't. It's not my money. But in terms of building a team, like we have to see the numbers and how they will impact everything, and then we'll react. Because some of these contracts are real, some of them are fake. And I don't know. I don't know where this is going because all the Niners are telling everybody is like, we're going to fucking play hardball. Well, okay. I'm cool with that. I'd play some hardball. I'd offer him a contract right now. Here's 3 years, $120 million. We'll guarantee every penny. He's made a total of $4 million in his life, which is a lot of money. But if I give you $120 million, what are you going to do? Say no? What are you going to play out? You're going to play another season for $1.5 million? Well, that's the going rate. Okay, then we'll franchise you next year. So you'll make a total of $45 million over the next 2 years. Is that what you want to do? We'll give you 120 right now with a signing bonus of $50 million that will be in your account before Easter. You interested? The answer is no. Okay. That's the way I would play it, but they're not playing it that way. So if they're not going to play it that way, it's like it's a waste of our breath. I remember it's like, why are we paying Tua? Why are we paying Trevor Lawrence? Well, they did, and then they're under contract. So we can talk all day long about that's crazy. Well, they did it. So it's like it's a waste of our breath to what they shouldn't have done because it's already done. And shit, now a year later, we're a year into the contract, which both did not age very well. Okay, last question. This is from Juan. That's my name in Spanish, though they used to call me Juanito, which stands for Little John. Hey, John, from your perspective, what do you think is the problem with the Colts? Pat McAfee probably is the best punter in Colts history. All of last season, literally critiqued the entire Colts organization and the team for how they're being run, and especially dodged Anthony Richardson for the tap out incident, but nobody wants to critique Shane for his play calling and lack of ability to help out Richardson grow. Would you try to give Richardson one more shot and just tear it all down and then a complete rebuild? I think the Colts are at the point where it's either shit or get off the pot for old Chris. And Chris is well liked in the industry. He's friends with Colin. A lot of people know him, and people think highly of the guy. But there's no disputing like they haven't won the division in forever. Feels like they haven't made the playoffs in a while now. And the Anthony Richardson situation is pretty embarrassing. Like there's just no way around that. It's just like it's bad. And then I saw a headline today is like, yeah, they're just gonna let the two guys compete. It's like, oh, he's competing with Peyton Manning, Philip Rivers. No, Daniel Jones. If Anthony Richardson were to be beat out by Daniel Jones, I don't think you could ever recover. And if he got beat out by Daniel Jones and then your team were to miss the playoffs, which I would probably expect them to do, you'd have to fire everybody. The problem is their owner doesn't feel like he's in a great spot. Feels like he's like like a kind of like a rocker druggy version meets Joe Biden. It's just not going well. I don't know if you're all upstairs anymore, but this is not Fortune 500 companies. The board of director can't force the CEO out. Like he owns it, he runs it, he's in charge, him and his family, so he can do whatever he wants. And he clearly likes these guys. He likes Chris a lot. I do wonder how many places, like for as for as well liked as Chris Ballard is, he would have been fired in Philadelphia 3 years ago. Would have been long gone. So I don't know. I mean, I'm at the point where Anthony Richardson kind of seen this movie before. You know, a guy with all these physical skills, and sometimes those are the worst. Guys with all these physical skills who aren't actually that good and do weird stuff that drive you nuts. That you hold on for much longer than you would for a guy with less talent. Because what would you do with the guy with less talent? You would just cut him. You would just move on, even if you draft or bench him, even if you drafted him high. But Anthony Richardson is like, guys, he's so fast. He's so physical presence. God, he can throw the ball 3 football fields on a rope. It's like, yeah, can he play quarterback? Can he hit the wheel route? Can he run a 2 minute drill? And the answer is usually no. So I think my guess would be right now is that Anthony Richardson ends up getting everyone fired. And Shane Steichen, like you said, I thought it was pretty eye opening. Like McAfee's not pulling the shit out of his butt. He's hearing things from people that know. And like Mike McDaniel in Miami, when it comes out, like he's like he called you guys for being like your team's not punctual. Guys are showing up late, and then Shane Steichen agrees, like, yeah, we gotta work on that. I forget exactly the way he kind of described it, but he acknowledged like it was a problem. It's like, listen, everyone has a moment where a tire blows, car battery's dead, you get into an accident, hell, maybe even you oversleep. Every human being, even the highest end SEAL Team 6 member, has probably been late one moment in their life. Some people maybe not, Tom Coughlin, but most people. But if it's like, yeah, it's like consistent issue with the team, that's a reflection of the head coach. I can't imagine people constantly showing up late to Belichick, to Andy Reid, to Pete Carroll, to Sean McVay, to Kyle Shanahan, to Sean Payton, to Nick Saban, to Kirby Smart. Like it wouldn't be tolerated because it's not tolerated because that's what bad teams do. Like, do you think a bunch of guys in the Ravens and Bills are just showing up late every week? No chance. Do you think a bunch of dudes on like the Lions are just lollygagging their way in? Sorry, Coach Campbell, late for the fourth time this month. My bad. You fucking kidding me? And even McDaniel's like, yeah, our fines don't work. That's an embarrassing thing to admit because it's not about the money. And clearly, when you say fines don't work, that's the practice squad guy ain't giving away $10,000 easily when he's making 200 grand, or your minimum 6 round pick ain't giving up that cash. The rich guys. It's like, well, who are the rich guys on the team? So you're telling me your best players don't give a shit about showing respect to the rest of the team and the head coach? Because that's all it is. When you show up late, listen, we've all been discombobulated and show up late to a Zoom or, forget like a phone call that we had 10 minutes ago. Like it's happened to us all. But like walking into a tangible meeting with, if you factor in an NFL meeting room, you got 53 guys on the active roster. You got another 10 practice squad guys. You got, I'll just pick a number, let's say between quality control guys and just analysts, you probably got 20 plus coaches, head coach, probably got a couple GM, assistant GM guys in there, some trainers. Like you got a lot of people in the room. So it's not you're just walking into like one guy, like my fault, Bill, I'm late. No, it's like 100 guys in the meeting room. I mean, we've all seen Hard Knocks and stuff. Like, I'm not even talking training camp. I'm talking during the season. The meeting rooms are big. So walking in 10 minutes late, that's pretty bad. That to me is the biggest red flag of the operation. And I think some guys, they're great like play callers, and clearly Shane is excellent, like understands offense. I also think sometimes when you have a player who is not good, it happens a lot at quarterback. We all kind of take a dump on the coordinator. It's like, no, I've seen Shane Steichen. He's pretty good. I think he's a good play caller. Is he a good disciplinarian? Is he strict enough? Is he too much of a player's coach? Yeah, I mean that might be the case. But just in terms of like calling a play on 3rd and 7 in the third quarter of a tie game, I think he's proven like he kind of knows what he's doing. When your quarterback can't hit basic routes, like it's going to make the coordinator look bad. So I will defend Shane, the coach, from a play caller standpoint. It's hard to defend him from the CEO because you're kind of both. Can you imagine people walking in late to the Harbaugh brothers meetings all the time? Are you kidding me? Like that, Jim might fight you. John just it just wouldn't be allowed. The team wouldn't allow it. So yeah, crazy times in Indy. Feel for you guys. I was a huge Peyton Manning guy in high school. Loved the Colts. Always rooted for him. And then he won it, and I kind of didn't be not that I'm not a Peyton Manning guy, but once he won it, I felt like okay, we're good. For a while I just didn't think he was going to get over the hump. I thought he was going to be like Charles Barkley of the NFL, but he was just too good. He figured it out. Okay, adios. Have a great weekend. Peace.